The Philadelphia Flyers have surprised some people with their solid start. Rachel Donner of Locked On Flyers discusses the keys to that start and what it'll take to keep it going. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL their first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And you can find us now on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show my usual Friday co-host, now a guest. It's not Friday, right? I mean,
I know. I'm like, didn't we just talk the other day?
We did. Rachel Donner, the co-host of Locked On Flyers, and Rachel, the Flyers surprising some people with their start, Saturday's disappointing performance notwithstanding. What have been some of the keys to the early season start for the Flyers?
Yeah, I think it's been a few things. Number one, I would say that, again, let's put that game against the Ducks aside. They've been playing pretty solidly defensively for having what is on paper a weaker blue line. We've also had Mark Stahl is injured and out. So, it's been a bit of a jumble there on the blue line, but we're getting key contributions from Travis Sanheim. He's kind of taken over the minutes that Ivan Provorov played last season, and we'll see if that's sustainable. But so far, he's got 8 points. He's got a goal and 7 assists, and has been playing a ton of ice time out there so far. And I would say that the return of Cam Atkinson and Sean Couturier has had a huge impact with Sean Couturier's playmaking and face-off ability. Cam Atkinson has been out there scoring goals, taking a ton of shots. He has got 8 points so far this season as well. And of course, Travis Konecny, who's off to an incredible start offensively, with 8 goals and 3 assists. So 11 points in 8 games. That is a tremendous start, but it's not even just that, because Konecny is getting penalty kill time as well. And, the Flyers have scored several shorthanded goals this season. So it's been kind of a team effort here.
Well, that's always encouraging. One area that seems to be a little bit of a concern, and you said that you have a different spin on it than maybe it appears to be, the backup goaltending. And we had the backup goalie in against the Ducks. The save percentage was not pretty, let's put it that way. Talk to me about the backup goaltending situation behind Carter Hart.
Yeah, we've talked about this in more detail on the Monday show of Locked On Flyers, so tune into that. But the real crux of the issue here, I think, is not the playing ability of Sam Ersson. I think that Sam Ersson is a real solid goaltender. He's young, and he's not as experienced as Carter Hart or as Felix Sandstrom, the third goalie on the roster. Remember that there are several teams holding on to third goalies because of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I think that the issue is deployment, and that Carter Hart has been put in most of the game. Ersson has only checked in for 2 games so far this season, and he's just a guy that needs to play in order to keep his skills up. And it's really not his ability as much as the usage of the goaltenders on the Flyers right now that could run into a problem later in the season if Carter Hart is being overused.
Yeah, no, that definitely does make sense. And, but the question is, will that change, do you think, or are they going to ride Carter Hart as much as possible over the course of the season?
I mean, this will be a big week to tell that for sure, because the Flyers have 4 games, including a back-to-back Friday and Saturday. So that will be the true indicator, because even with 4 games, with having the back-to-back, if Sam Ersson only plays one of those two in the back-to-back and none of the other games, I think that'll be the indicator if they're just going to ride Carter Hart as much as they possibly can.
Give me a player on the Flyers who isn't making a lot of headlines, may not be, at the top of the scoring list, but has been quietly making an important contribution to the team's early start.
I want to say Bobby Brink, but I don't know if it's exactly quiet there because, he's getting his first real crack at the lineup for a full season here. It looks like he's going to stick around. He's got 6 points already and scored 2 goals in the game where he scored his first NHL goal, which was really cool to see that for him. So I think he's got a lot of eyes on him. I'm going to say Igor Zamula because as a younger defenseman, with the Mark Stahl injury, he's been in the lineup. And when they decided to make some changes, they sent Emil Andre down to the Phantoms, kept Zamula up. And he's just been quietly building his game and learning a lot and played pretty solidly so far. And he's not going to be a defenseman that's going to put a ton of points on the board. But he's got a goal and 2 assists so far. That was also his first NHL goal that he scored. And he's, I think going to be a real solid part of this Flyers blue line in the rebuild.
Well, he leads the team right now with a +6. So that certainly indicates he's doing something right.
Yeah.
As far as the rest of the season, I mean, last year we saw the Flyers get off to a solid start. Also, it kind of faded and they struggled for the rest of the year. What are the keys in your mind for this early season improvement to sustain itself for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think the key is going to be adjustments in that looking at this from a big picture perspective and say, what are the small adjustments that we have to make game to game in order to keep up the defensive structure that we want to, but not wear ourselves down too much? And, not swing that pendulum too widely in terms of focusing too much on goal scoring versus focusing on that Tortorella defense shot blocking. There has to be a happy medium here. And this year is about it being a learning experience for a lot of the younger guys and figuring out, what this team is so that by the end of the season, we know who's going to be a part of it going forward and can manage the trade deadline appropriately. I don't know if expectations are going to be too high for a ton of wins here in the long run, but I think that as long as they're making progress, they're learning things, they're learning how to adjust their systems, and maybe getting the power play into gear. I think that would be helpful as well, figuring out what to do there. It'll be a successful season for year one of this rebuild.
And how would you grade, again, I know it's early in the season, but how would you grade John Tortorella as far as how he's handling these kids so far?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. I think that he's doing really well with some of the guys and some of what he's doing. I do like the trust that he's put in Bobby Brink. I do like, again, I mentioned Zamula. I think that's really good. He really likes this fourth line a lot, which does some good things. And, they haven't really put points on the board this season. But I do think that he just has certain ways of operating and things in his head. And for instance, we have not seen Morgan Frost this season, despite him being a solid center, and that's rotated Scott Laughton into the center position. And Scott Laughton just has not gotten on the board this season with a goal. He's got some assists, which is great, but he does so much better offensively on the wing. And Morgan Frost is sitting right there as a center that they could slot in. But I think Tortorella has been afraid to take out one of the younger kids because of confidence issues. And so I think there's a way to go about this that he just hasn't done yet. So hopefully we'll see that moving forward.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to keep track of that and all things Flyers. Rachel, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
Sure. We are at Locked On Flyers pretty much everywhere on social media right now. So take a look and you'll find us. And I am on the app formerly known as Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm that on Blue Sky as well. My co-host Russ Cohen is at Sportsology anywhere you'll look as well.
All right, Rachel, thanks so much. Always a pleasure, and looking forward to Friday.
See you Friday.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. So Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I'll tell you, the feature that I love best on the Game Time app is that you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find last-minute seats. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.